Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Hey, you guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. Oh my goshes. Can you believe it, you guys? This is my 300th episode. Like 300 shows. It's kind of crazy because a friend of mine was writing to me last night and she said, 300 episodes, like that's a really big deal. Are you going to celebrate? And I hadn't really thought about it, but I mean, I'm really proud of myself. I'm really happy that I have been wicked consistent, that I've been doing this like 6 years, like 6 years. I've been sitting up here in my office like a little weirdo. Me and Mr. Rogers and Ganesh and my mom and Priscilla and Bob Ross over there. Like we've all just been up here in my office like a little weirdo kind of talking to myself. I mean, obviously I'm talking to you guys, but I record these by myself, just like talking to this screen. So just it's a wicked big deal and I am excited. And I just want to say the biggest thing I want to say is thank you so much. Like thank you to every listener, thank you to every person who's ever shared the show. Thank you to my sweetie who currently Chris Lesta, right? My husband, my sweetie, who helps me do the audio portion of this show. I do all the other production, but he does the audio. I could not do it without him. Thank you to my former podcasting team from Amplify You and Aaron, who I love, who helped me for many years get this show out into the world. Anybody, like I said, who's a new listener, a loyal listener. I know some of you have been with me since like episode 1. So like 300 episodes. Also, congratulations to you, like for sticking in there with me and going along for the ride. And hey, you know, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm going to continue to feel inspired and guided to keep doing this for another 300. But I just wanted to take a moment and pause and just really say thank you to each of you, to all of you. I love you and I appreciate you. And thank you so much. Okay, so here we are, 300th episode, and this sucker is called How Can I Help? And it's so fitting because I'm wearing one of my favorite artists, Batsy Heads. I'm wearing my I help you. Psychiatric help, 5 cents. I help you. My little I help you booth. Oh my God. I love this sweatshirt so much. It makes me laugh every time I see it. So I'm wearing this also because, hello, how can I help you? This is the name of it. And I've been thinking about this question for a long time because for a lot of different reasons, like that is one of, I think, my core values is that I am a helper, that if I see somebody in need, if I see somebody in distress, if I see an animal in need or an animal distress, I am just compelled to try to do something. You know, I don't consider myself the friggin' savior of the world. I don't always have all the means or the resources or the knowledge or whatever to help. I'm not here to save anybody. It's just, I do my best with what I've got. You know what I mean? But this question, why I've really been thinking about it, is I don't know if any of you have ever seen a show called New Amsterdam. There's a main character of that show called Dr. Max Goodwin. Okay, his name is not a mistake. When the writers were writing this, they gave him the appropriate name, right? Goodwin. Okay. And his character, the very first time that we meet his character, he has been made the new medical director of this hospital, right? And he comes in. And after he basically fires everybody because the old system wasn't working, like he comes in, he's like, this is bullshit. This is not working. This is not how we're going to do this. This is a public hospital. Healthcare is a right. Healthcare is deserved for all, even if you can't pay for it. So he totally upturns this old system that is no longer working. And his number one thing that he asks everybody over the 5 seasons of this show is, how can I help? And he uses this question to engage with his patients. He uses this question to talk to his friends, the families of the patients that are like sick or whatever. And he also uses it with his colleagues. So I heard this question over and over and over again as I was watching this show. And I believe it's a question that everyday people, I mean, of course, leaders, it's a really powerful way for a leader or anybody who has any kind of power in an industry or whatever. They can use this as a very powerful tool to not only create change, but also to motivate people and to support their team members and stuff like that. But I'm just talking about like everyday people like you and me, like going through our life and asking this very powerful and important question. how can I help? And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about, like, how can I help, right? How can we kind of take this really big and broad question and start to apply it to like our everyday life? Because, right, it's like I was saying, like everyday people, this is a really important question because, especially at a time right now when the world can feel like an absolute shit show, when the world can feel so scary, so filled with separation, so filled with scarcity, so filled with sickness, not just like physical sickness, but sickness in the mind. Like there is some shit that is going down in the country right now that is like some part, I'm like the brains and the minds that are coming up with all this hateful rhetoric, all this division, all this racist, misogynistic, hateful, like all the shit that like's going down. There's just so much hatred and division. There's so much a sense of threat. There's like really high levels of fear and a sense of threat. And there's definitely a bunch of people and communities and populations and nervous systems, like pretty much like across the board, that are feeling a lack of safety. And when everything starts to feel like it's like all going to hell in a handbasket, it can be really easy to be thinking like, well, I'm just one person. My vote doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter. My situation doesn't matter. Like I feel like kind of cut off at the knees. Like I can't really, really do anything. And one of the things that I always try to remind people is this: while we cannot change all the things out there, when you feel like, oh my God, like the world has lost its collective mind, like what is going on? And you start to look around, you get a little more suspicious of everybody. Again, lack of trust, lack of safety, all these things, a lot of dysregulated nervous systems, right? And even though we can't change the things out there, we do have autonomy, agency, authority, and authorship of what goes on inside of us. And I know that when it starts to feel like all the systems are built against you or built against us, like all the powers that be, all the things that are happening, it can be really easy to start to feel hopeless. It can be really easy to start to feel helpless. It can be really tempting to just kind of like pull the covers over your head, stick your head in the sand, throw up your hands and say like, I'm ineffective. There's nothing I can do. Like, well, I voted, I did this, but look how, or whatever, right? Whatever the story is that we tell ourselves. And this just isn't on a global scale. This can sometimes be in relationships, in the family dynamic, in the family systems, in the school systems. It's not just like the greater government or politics and politicians and all the like policy. It's also just like within the smaller kind of little systems of like friendships or lovers or marriages or partnerships or, businesses or whatever it is. And when we start to feel that impending doom of like, well, never, I always talk about, I always talk about this, about the little character on the Banana Splits. Some of you might be too young to remember that show, but that show, The Banana Splits, and they had the spinoff within that show of Gulliver's Travels. And there was this one little guy in Gulliver's Travel. He was a Lilliputian, they called it. They were like a little teeny tiny people. And he would always just throw up his hands and mumble and be like, we'll never make it. We're doomed. And it can be so tempting sometimes to just kind of give into that state, that kind of Eeyore, right? That Eeyore state of mind. Okay, but here's the thing. So when it starts to feel like it's all just like falling apart and spinning out of control and whatever. And I know that I can't change other people. I can't change whole governments. I can't change whole, systems of racism and hatred and all this stuff. That's what I do is I look around for what I can change. I take a moment. I use some pattern interrupts that I use, right? Breath work, whatever it is. I have a bunch of different tools in my toolkit, tools that I share and teach people in the nest or my one-to-one clients, right? So what I do is I look around for what I can change. I look around for what I can control. I look around for what I can do. I look around for what I can offer. I look around for where I can use my voice for the voiceless. I look around for where I can take a stand. I look around for where I can say, no, not today, not on my fucking watch, not happening in front of me, right? I look for those places. It can be really hard, though, to go into those places of standing in your strength, of using your voice, of sticking up for what you believe is right, for saying no, for being a whistleblower, for writing your congressman, writing your House of Representatives, like calling whoever, right? Like doing the right thing. I always say doing the right thing doesn't mean just because it's right doesn't mean it's always easy, right? Because there's a lot of fear of like, well, what will happen to me if I show up to be helpful, if I show up and take a stand, I show up and do this thing. But I was on a call the other day with my friend and my spiritual godmother and my mentor, Marianne Williamson. And she basically was saying that the only loving question at this time is this: how can I serve? And this is something I have been asking and doing for a wicked long time. Not surprising, right? Because she's been in my life a long time. I've been a Course in Miracles student for a long time. I've been a yoga student for a long time. I've been a student of, like, I was a Catholic kid, right? So this idea of, like, if you look at, and I don't care if you have, if you come from a childhood religion or a childhood faith or a way of worshiping, if you're an atheist, if you're it does not take much. Even if you, I always say, when I look at Jesus, I'm like, you don't have to attach Jesus to a religion. I think he's a free agent. And in fact, we're going to be talking about Jesus in a whole new kind of mystical way when I have a special guest on my show soon. But I kind of think about Jesus as like being a free agent. And you can even look at him as a mythological figure or a mystical figure, right? You don't have to attach him to any kind of dogma or doctrine. But when you kind of look at his living example and you look at the stories of Jesus, or even quote unquote the Gospels, which to me is just the recordings of the stories of how this person spoke and what they did and how they changed the world in their time. Jesus was the number one, how can I help and how can I serve? And so when I think about that, as through that lens, so from a little kid, right, being raised in the quote unquote the Catholic tradition, it's like, you heard stories of Jesus and how he kind of roamed around and like hung out with like the lepers and the prostitutes and the poorly and the sick, and how he helped the animals and how he did, all these incredible things. And I think, like, yeah, like that was a person who was living from a thought system of love instead of a thought system of fear. And that question, how can I help, to me takes root, right? It blossoms, it gives forth, from that place of love. And it's interesting, as a spiritual mentor, so many people think of, words kind of get taken and then bastardized by like certain cultures and groups of people. And I think the word spirituality, it can have a certain resonance for certain people, like the way that they look at it or what they assign meaning to that word. Okay. And so a lot of people think of spirituality as just being all like love and light. I'm doing like little air quotes. People think of it being all like love and light and thoughts and prayers, right? And they think of it as being really passive, weak, too gentle, too coddling, whatever they think. They think of it as kind of like ineffective bullshit. But here's the thing that I can tell you. Love can be fierce. And when you drag the darkness into the light, the darkness disappears, because light and darkness cannot exist in the same place. Fear cannot exist in the same space as love. So love and light, when we use it all like, oh, love and light, and that's your tag or whatever, that's really different than when you put some power, some intention, and some action behind love and behind the light. And it's the same thing with thoughts and prayers, because prayers in A Course in Miracles says that prayers are the medium of miracles. Not miracles like walking around and parting the Red Sea or walking on water or raising people from the dead, right? But miracles in this kind of experience of small r reality is like a shift in perception in your mind from a thought system of fear to a thought system of love. When we do that and we shift our perception, the way that we see ourselves, see the world, and we start to choose differently with a different teacher, with a different point of view, with a different internal teacher, spirit guiding us, divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it. When we do that, right? It's very powerful. So prayer are the mediums of miracles. It's how we can get some shit done. But so is thoughts. People I think don't realize. And so as a spiritual mentor, as a hypnotist, as a life coach, as somebody who is a change worker and helps people through kind of finding the intelligence, right, that lives within them and doing transformational work. One of the things that I can tell you is this: our thoughts are so fucking powerful. Our thoughts, oh my God, oh my God. When you think about how 95% to 97%, whatever the number is, of everything that we think, say, and do, it comes from our subconscious. Subconscious is like the realm of where we're holding these old patterns, these old habits, these old deep conditioned and patterned and habituated neural networks in the brain, things that have been repeated that we've been doing for a really long time. So in A Course in Miracles, we say that there are no neutral thoughts. There are no neutral thoughts. And it goes on to say this: it's because everything you see is the result of your thoughts. Ask anybody with IBS. Ask anybody with, especially IBSD. Ask anybody with anxiety. Ask anybody with like that uses their mind to miscreate all the time. I can literally just start to think about something, and if I think about it enough times with enough emotion and enough intensity, I can start to make myself anxious. You know what I mean? What do we think happens with anxiety, right? We have a way of thinking. And since the brain loves to save time, the brain loves to go in and say, oh, I already know this. I know this pattern. I can do this like that. Oh, yeah, getting anxious is really easy. I have a really strong neural network for anxiety. You know what I mean? I always say it's not that I'm anxious, but I'm experiencing anxiety, which is meaning like that old system, excuse me, that old system is kicking on. So our minds and our thoughts are so powerful because they are causal. They are cause. And what we see, everything starts as a thought, and what we see is the result of our thinking. When I look at a world that has gone mad, what I realize is that enough people have left their right mind and they have taken detours into fear. And they can try to convince themselves they're doing the right thing, whatever. But I'm like, hey, if we're going to continue to miscreate from a place of fear, we're going to keep getting exactly what we've got right now. So when I think about this, right, I don't think that thoughts and prayers, like when there's a mass shooting or something fucking just awful happens, then people are like, oh, thoughts and prayers, that's just bullshit. That's just like words. It doesn't mean anything. But when people are intentional with their thoughts, when people are intentional and proactive with their prayers, when people are intentional with their thinking thoughts of love and asking the question, how can I help from a loving place? Not, oh, I'm going to swoop in and rescue you because you're so helpless and hopeless. No. When we help from an empowered place where we see the other person in our mind, when we see them as being capable and happy, healthy, healed, whole, and holy, how they were created, it's remarkable. And when I think about this concept of the light too, since we're talking about this love and light, you know, Swami Kripalu, Bapuji, one of my spiritual grandfathers, right? He always used to say this, and he would say, do not fight the darkness. So we don't have to spend all this time, all this energy, like fighting the systems that are and that be, because it's not about going backwards. It's about, what do I want to create from a place of love? Not what do I want to fight out of fear? So he says, do not fight the darkness, just turn on the light. Turn on that light that is within you. Shine that light so bright. And one of the ways that I turn on the light when it feels like the world has gone dark is I ask myself, how can I help? How can I help? And one of the ways that I can first be helpful to everybody else, humans, animals, the environment, eventually myself, right, is I start with me doing a DSP, a daily spiritual practice. Because to me, a DSP, what it really is mind training. It is training your mind. It is being able to put your mind where you want to put it when you want to put it there, so that we're not distracted, so that we don't just surrender critical thinking, so we don't all of a sudden get like influenced by all these fucking influencers who don't even know most of the time what they're talking about. So we don't give our authorship and our autonomy and our agency, right, away. So to me, having a practice that is mind training is really powerful. And just like you would go to the gym, right? CrossFit, strength training, powerlifting, workout, whatever you do for a workout to strengthen your muscles, right? Your cardio, your running, like all the things that you do to get stronger physically. We also have to do this mentally. I say have to. You're grown adults. I can't make you. You can do whatever you want. That sounded a little bossy. But I highly encourage you. I highly encourage you to have a DSP, to have a daily spiritual practice of some kind that actually trains your mind. Because just like we have to strengthen our physical muscles, we have to strengthen our mental muscles, our spiritual muscles. We got to do it. And A Course in Miracles, there's a line that I love that says, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. An untrained, it's another way of saying an undisciplined, an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. And there's another passage where it says something like, you accomplish so little because you are untrained. Your mind is untrained. When we have an untrained mind, we become really gullible. When we have an untrained mind, we stop questioning things. When we have an untrained mind, we start to just get helpless and hopeless and throw up our hands and be like, there's nothing I can do. When we have an untrained mind, we get highly hypnotized by other people's propaganda and rhetoric and bullshit and hatred and racism and like all the systems, just all the systems you grow up in. I always say little kids don't come out of the womb hating. Little kids are taught to hate. Little kids are taught to start to do comparison and better than, right? Little kids are taught, like I always say, like Aristotle or whoever. I got to stop saying it was either Plato or Aristotle. I'm like, it was one of the Stoics. It was one of those guys. I got to figure out who it was. But they would say, give me the boy or the girl, right? Give me the child, but we'll say, just use boy in this case. Give me the boy until he is 8 and I will show you the man. So much of how people are acting in their adult life, and this is why I do the work that I do, right, is because of the conditioning and the patterns and the habits, the way they were hypnotized, as I would call it, quote unquote, as children. And it's acting itself out. And if we don't at some point start to question some things and slow down and get intentional and regulate our nervous systems, all the things that I do for the work that I do with people, right? Had to do it with myself first and continue to do it for myself first too, because I don't want to be, we're all a little crazy. Just accept it. We're all a little insane, but I don't want to be so insane and go off the rails that I'm contributing in a massive way to like the hatred and the insanity. Okay. So to me, a daily spiritual practice, it primes us. It primes us. It primes our brain. It primes us to take responsibility. A DSP, a good daily spiritual practice. I always say the 5 Ds of DSP: daily, dedication, determination, discipline, and devotion, right? These are the qualities that we want to bring to our daily spiritual practice. But having a DSP of contemplation, meditation, prayer, journaling, whatever it is, right? Reading your daily devotional, like being present, taking some quiet time for you and the God of your own understanding, to be in nature, to be with the universe, however you see that perfect oneness, however it is that you relate to the love that is, right? When we have a DSP, it primes us to first of all start to discipline our mind. It also helps us to take responsibility. It helps us to listen for guidance, inner guidance, not out there, not all the chatter, not all the influencers, not all the memes, not all the stuff coming at you and towards you. What is coming from inside of you? What is the radio station dial? I always say the assignment is alignment. So aligning to the Holy Spirit, spirit, intuition, instinct, inner teacher. I don't care what you call it. Listening for that guidance. And then once you get your assignment, right? And we all have our own individual curriculum. We all have our own individual assignment. And then we got to go out there and take action. And this question, how can I help, is one of the questions that we can ask in our DSP. And then we get quiet enough and we listen for the next right smallest step. Because when we ask the big question, how can I help? We get overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, there's so many animals suffering, right? California just like burned to the ground. Oh my God. And these are like far away things. Like there's like, oh my God, there's starving children over here. There was a tsunami over here. There was a plane and helicopter crash over here. There was a mass shooting over here. Oh my God, they're threatening to deport citizens over here or people over here. We're doing this, we're doing that. And it can all feel like so big, so much. And like, here's the thing. We can't all hop on planes and like go to California and bring goods, whatever. So we ask right where I am with what I have, the resources I have, what's available to me, my mental power, my energy, my love, my thoughts, my prayers, my love, my light, my bank account, my skills, my talents, whatever resources you have. How can I use them? And we can't always do something far away unless maybe there's a donation link or a GoFundMe, or you can make a phone call to help somebody out who's local, whatever, right? But we can look really close to home and say, first things first, what can I do? Well, first things first is I can get my own mind right so that I'm actually co-creating with the divine from a place of love and a place of intelligence. So I'm not being hijacked. My amygdala is like pumping out, right? Like all these chemicals. I'm going into fight and flight. My sympathetic nervous system's turned on. It's like, oh shit, danger, danger, Will Robinson, right? It's like, okay, first of all, I got to get my own head on straight. I got to get out of my detour into fear and I need to come back. Number one. Well, how do we do that? Well, there's breath work, there's meditation, there's prayer. Right? There's somatic exercises, havening, tapping, EFT. There's like 1,000 things that we can start to do to bring ourselves back online, to shift out of that fight or flight or that trauma response, number one. But here are some prayers. Here, and if you don't like the word prayers, just think of them as helpful words. But if the only loving question we can ask at this time is, how can I serve or how can I help? One of the things that I have found incredibly helpful, several things. There are several prayers that I say every day. Again, take them or leave them. I don't care. Don't like the words prayer. Call it something else. Call it prose. Call it helpful words. I don't care what you call it. Don't get hung up on it. Okay? But there's a prayer from A Course in Miracles that is sometimes called the Miracle Worker's Prayer. Ooh, excuse me. That is sometimes called the Miracle Worker's Prayer. I've heard it called other prayers. But here it is. And this is a really powerful reminder to yourself when things start to get like shit scary out of control. Okay? Here it is. I am here only to be truly helpful. You could probably just you could even stop there. Remind yourself, I am here only to be truly helpful. Now, don't let the pronouns of the next line get you weird. Say her, say it. Don't get weird about the word him. Some people do. That's why I'm right. So I'm just going to say that. Okay. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. It's another way of saying I'm here to represent love. I'm here to represent the love that sent me, right? I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. This is about getting quiet, going within, listening for your next right smallest step. Is it, I should write my representative. I should call my congressman. I should donate at the food bank. I should volunteer at the animal shelter. I should make a post on Facebook and use my voice. I should raise my hand at that town hall. I should go to the next town meeting that's happening. Maybe I should register to vote. Like whatever the next step is, it's not for me to tell you what it is. You will know. Oh, I should do an in-person whatever. I should do a podcast episode about that, whatever it is. Okay. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. And then it says this, I'm content to go wherever he wishes, knowing that he goes there with me. Again, you could just insert the word love. I'm content to be wherever love wishes, knowing that love goes there with me. And I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. So here it is again, full thing. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent him who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me, and I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. I say this prayer before I do a podcast. I say it when I wake up in the morning. I say it before I step on a stage, before I guest teach in somebody's program, before I have one of my clients, before I do a nest call, before I teach a yoga class. Anytime that I feel like this is an opportunity where my words are going to land upon somebody else, and I'm thinking in my head, may they be loving, may they be helpful, may they be effective, maybe they be used in service to love. This is what I'm always asking. It's a very powerful prayer. Another prayer, excuse me, also adapted, adapted from A Course in Miracles, is simply this. And you can say this at any time. You can say this at any time when you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Or you're like, oh my God, the world is going so crazy. And you just start to feel like, I need to do something. I want to do something. What can I do? Or how can I help? When you're asking that question, here's a great prayer. Get very quiet. Simply say this. Please have me go where you would have me go. Have me do what you would have me do. Have me say what you would have me say, and to whom. I also add, please have me be who you would have me be. Please use me, please use me, please use me. And I always end with, and so it is, amen. Say that or don't say that, right? But we're asking for that guidance of how can I be helpful? We don't decide how we can be helpful first and then try to go and inflict our help and ourselves on people. I ask for that guidance. And we often know, it's like, how do I know if I'm listening for the voice of ego versus the voice of love, the voice of spirit? It's like, well, the voice of spirit, you feel more at peace. You feel peaceful. Instead of feeling anxious and agitated and I got to, and like whenever we're coming from that place of fear, like we can stop, we can slow down, pattern interrupt, right? And then say this, and then listen deeply. Listen deeply for where you feel guided to go and to who and what are you going to say? Who are you going to say it to? Without an agenda, but really truly asking, like, how can I serve with my set of skills, with my talents, with my gifts, with my insight, with my perspective, with my experience, with my resources, with my team, with my community? How can we show up and make a difference? Okay. I mean, you look, all you have to do is look around you. And it's not always just in times of crisis. I mean, there are people like Mr. Rogers, people like Bob Ross. There are people like some of my heroes, right? Yeah, you have the extremes like Martin Luther King Jr., who is out there like just, talk about being a change maker and a world changer, like Gandhi too, like Jesus. You have these people who really just in this lifetime are given the assignment of like, you are going to do some heavy lifting for humanity. You know what I'm saying? And we might not get that kind of call to action, but each one of us can do something. And, you know, it reminds me of, you know, St. Francis. St. Francis's prayer, again, I don't care if you're religious. These are like mystical words. These are like alchemizing words. This is alchemy, right? It's powerful stuff. That's what love to fear is. I mean, fear to love is. It's alchemizing. It changes. It takes this stuff and transforms it. It's my whole process, like your story to your glory. That's what this is. But when St. Francis says, you know, he says like, make me an instrument of peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Like, oh, like divine master grant that I might not be like seeking to be consoled, but to go out there and console. Not sitting around hoping to be understood, but going out there and trying to understand. Not waiting around to be loved, but to go out and to love. Because it's in giving that we receive. It's when we pardon people and forgive them that we are pardoned ourselves. And it's in dying to this idea of the small self, this ego self, this separation, all this bullshit. So much bullshit right now. It's just such a racket right now. It's in dying to all of that, that we are born into eternal light, eternal life, and into the people that we actually are, which is love. So to me, right now, this is what we should be asking, right? We can't, like, we got to feel our feelings, of course. You got to take good care of yourself. You got to process your grief. You got to feel all the part of this whole human experience. And then we have to get back to the business of love. And it also reminds me something else that is also said in like 12-step programs. There's a line, I don't know if it's AA or one of them, but I know I've heard it. And it's this. It says, get into the solution. Get into the solution. Because it's really easy to get distracted by all the despair and all the news and all the negativity that is being pumped onto the internet and social media and in the news and all that stuff, right? It'd be really easy to get distracted by like all the like bad shit. Get into the solution. So like in recovery, it basically means to actively focus on, right, the steps and the practices that are going to lead to you staying sober. Like that's what that's about. Rather than dwelling on all the problems and all the negative aspects that come with, having addictions and blah, blah, blah. So it basically encourages you to shift your mindset, to get out of the issues and the problems, and instead to start to actively engage in the thought system and the behaviors of the recovery process. And it can be really easy right now. I think as a nation, as a world, we need to recover more and more and more of our humanity, of our brothership, our sisterhood, of our oneness, of our compassion, our mercy, our grace, our goodness, our strength, because we are better together, right? So right now, we are trying to recover a powerful and transformational thought system of love instead of one of fear. And we need you. We need you. We need you to show up with your gifts and your talents and your words and your power and your resources and your people and your love and your light and your thoughts and your intentional prayers. We need you to show up as well. So on this 300th episode, that's what I'm asking you right now. How can you help? You don't have to know the answer right this second, but take a little time, get quiet, listen deeply. If you don't have a DSP, you need help with a DSP, consider joining the nest. Just go to KarenKenney.com, you'll see it. KarenKenney.com, work with me, the quest, the nest, whatever. If you need support and help doing that. But you can just do this right now. Just stop. I mean, not if you're driving or whatever. Be safe, right? Be smart. But like, how can you help? Ask yourself, how can I help? And then I hope you go about the business of listening deeply once you ask the question, listening for your own, right, inner teacher, the voice of your own inner teacher, the voice for love, and that you are courageous enough and brave enough and confident enough to just take the next right smallest step. And I believe in you, and the world needs you, and you matter, and you are good enough right now to be helpful. You are worthy enough right now to be helpful. You are loved. You are loving. You are capable of extending love. And that's what's required right now. How can I help? Extend love. What does that look like? I don't know. Go inside, get quiet, and wait for your further instructions because they're coming. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my 300th episode. I love you. I appreciate you so much. I hope we get to spend more time together. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody. That means so much to me. If you found it helpful in some way and you want to support the show, feel free to use the tip jar. Just go to karenkenny.com/tip jar, one word. And wherever you go out there, right? May you leave yourself and the animals and the other people and the environment and the planet better than how you found it. Wherever you go, may you and your presence and your energy and your love and your help be a blessing. Bye.